Hi, listeners. Welcome back to the Dreadful Dialogue. My name's Elise, and of course, I am your host. This week, we are covering a movie that we haven't covered called The Howling, and I have a new guest with me. His name is John David, and he is a fantasy writer, and he's going to make sure at the end to tell us all about the stuff that he's written so that we can learn all about that. I'm very interested in his books. I've already been reading the synopsis of it, and I'm looking forward to personally checking it out. So again, we're going to be talking about 1981's movie, The Howling. And of course, we introduced our guest formally. Go ahead and say hi, John David.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So we're glad to have you. As usual, we're going to spoil this movie. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. It is kind of hard to get your hands on. I hadn't seen it, since I was a little kid, which, I didn't realize how spicy this movie was, by the way, guys. If you're wanting to show this to your kids, the horror is not too bad, but there's some nudity. So don't show it to your children. But a good side note on that, if you don't want to buy the physical media through like Amazon or one of those resources, check out your local library. That's where I got it. I also was able to watch it through the Canopy app. So look into that if you can't get your hands on it. So let's get into our questions. So John, you chose this movie. Can you tell me, why did you choose The Howling for us to cover?
Well, I initially was hoping for An American Werewolf in London, but you had already done an awesome episode on that. So if you haven't seen that, you really should check it out. But The Howling is also, it's like a close second when it comes to werewolf movies. And it also came out in 1981. And I like to say that it's kind of like American Werewolf in London's cousin, because as you mentioned in your London video, that Rick Baker, the guy who did the special effects for that, he was friends with John Landis, and John Landis gave him this idea, like, hey, I got this idea for a great werewolf story, and you're going to have to come up with some new, special effects for it when we get money for it. So sometime in the future, we'll do that. Which, okay. So Rick Baker started thinking about it, and by the time that The Howling was looking for people to do special effects, they were able to get Rick Baker. It says, hey, you know what? You're in luck. I got some ideas here for werewolf and transformations and stuff like that. And then John Landis gets money to finally do American Werewolf in London. And he goes, hey, Rick, we're going to do my werewolf movie. He says, man, I'm already doing this other werewolf movie. What? You got to be kidding me here, man. Come on. So thankfully, Rick Baker was able to hand over the reins to an assistant of his on The Howling named Rob Bottin, who also did great special effects for the film. And he would later go on to do The Thing, and just that guy, he's kind of out there, but he's awesome. I mean, Rob Bottin was awesome for The Howling. And so it is a close second to me for the best werewolf movie ever.
Okay, so then are you a big werewolf fan in general of that genre of movies or books or any of that?
Not normally. I'm more of a quality kind of guy. I'm normally not for slasher flicks, but if it is an okay film, then that's why I'm a fan of it. It's not necessarily because it's of a certain genre or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I was just curious since you mentioned both of those. Yeah, so shout out to our American Werewolf in London episode. That's another one if you guys want to check it out. Little selfless plug, shameless plug there. Do you remember when you first watched the Howling?
Yes, cable TV. God bless it.
TV
I didn't start seeing rated R movies in the theater until I was a teenager. My older brothers would take me, and sure as heck wasn't my parents. But yeah, we had cable TV, and I don't think my parents were exactly aware of, the stuff that was being shown on cable TV. But we were able to watch it, and my brothers and I were able to really enjoy it. And the kids at school, we would talk about films that we had seen over the weekend or something like that. What, did you go to see this in the theater? No, man, we got cable. No, the heck with you. Yeah, the kids were jealous that we got to see certain movies. Oh, well, okay, I can see how you can be jealous of that. So
Yeah, no, if you were having cable as a child was definitely a luxury. Now we live in an era where if you don't have cable, you have like a million streaming services. Yeah, we had cable, or sometimes we acquired cable. I like to joke. Sorry, mom and dad, I'm throwing you under the bus on that one. The video stores are always a good hookup on. It was a different era, of course, mom and pop video stores. And I think I watched it on cable as well. And I think, I totally forgot, like I mentioned in the opening, that how much was going on in the movie, why it was on cable and why it was probably on later in the day and not in the afternoon. Yeah. So I'm glad you picked it though, because I really I had to do a couple rewatches, and I always let my guests choose what they want to watch. So I'm glad you picked it, so we can dive more into it. So when I first watched it, because again, I just remembered the gist of the movie. I remembered like Karen's character. I remember she was like a reporter and she goes somewhere and she became a werewolf. And that was about the gist that I could remember. Mm-hmm. So when I was rewatching it, I was like, man, like initially it kind of came off like a serial killer movie. If I didn't know anything about it, I would have thought, oh, this is just going to be about a serial killer. I mean, the title and maybe the cover art might have kind of alluded to it being a werewolf movie, but do you think it came off as a serial killer movie initially?
The entire movie has a really creepy vibe and look, and the instant that you sit down and start watching, you're kind of creeped out, and that's good for a horror film. Sometimes horror films are more grounded in reality. This one certainly isn't, and I do like the idea of it, following, they just think that this Eddie Quist guy is a serial killer. He's just this monster. Oh, he's a monster, all right. In
Literally,
every possible way.
Yeah, I definitely get that vibe. And like you said, it does really have a creepy factor to it. I don't know if it's maybe being a woman, seeing the scene where like right when she walks into the theater and it's making her watch that porno, and you're like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh, like this is a little darker. It kind of reminded me of like Copycat or true crime type of videos, movies that are out there. So yeah, I got that vibe. It had a little bit of creepiness, but then then when you figure out the werewolf aspect, then the real world part of it kind of goes out the window and it takes on another, kind of like, another route.
Karen, we got good and bad news for you. The good news is that you're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. The bad news is you're surrounded by werewolves.
Do you think they really was Karen? Like, why? I couldn't figure out, why did they pick Karen? Like, was it the doctor who picked her? Was the whole group? Like, why Karen?
I think the doctor, they really don't go into too much detail in the film. I don't know if they go into too much detail in the book. This is based off of a book and I've never read it. I haven't been able to find a copy of it, unfortunately. Apparently, there is a sequel to the book that's nothing like the sequels to this movie. The sequels to this movie were, I couldn't watch them. I mean, they're terrible.
Yeah, they're pretty terrible from the little bit that I've glanced at.
Yeah, they're pretty horrible. The second one, it has Christopher Lee in it. And later on, Christopher Lee would work with the director of the first Howling when he's in Gremlins 2, The New Batch. And one of the first films that he did, when sitting down with the director, the first time that they met, I'm so very sorry that I was in the Howling. That being said, let's move on.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of Joe Dante connections with Gremlins and stuff. But I took you from I'm sorry, I interrupted you, I think. So did you figure out why Karen was picked?
No.
Because they don't, like you said, I don't think they spell it out for us, right? It's just kind of...
No,
she's just an easy mark. Was it because she was a newswoman and the doctor was trying to assimilate them into the regular people? I don't know. I couldn't figure it out.
Let's invite them over to, the group, but, let's kind of judge them. They don't bite them right away. They don't turn them into werewolves right away. They just kind of like, okay, we'll check them out and whatnot. We'll go from there. The one she-wolf certainly did like her husband, didn't she?
Marcia, I think, right? The she-wolf. Yeah.
Marcia's a great cook.
Yeah, she's a beautiful woman for sure. Did you? And again, because it might be harder for you to answer this question. I'm coming into the movie more as a first time watcher, even though I wasn't technically a first time watcher. I felt like one from not seeing it so long. Right away when I heard The Colony, I'm all, oh, this isn't good. I'm like, this is gonna be like a cult, or is it not gonna be good vibes? Do you think that the name The Colony gives off the negative vibes, or that something sinister was actually going to happen. Did you think that when you first heard the doctor suggest that he wanted to send Karen to the colony, that he was actually up to something sinister?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he knows what the heck is going on, and he knows that, she's completely 100% human. I think maybe he sent her there too, kind of like, hey, you guys like her? You like Karen and her husband Bill? You like him? You want to be part of the group here? That sort of deal. Yeah.
Yeah. They right when I heard The Colony, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like a cult. That's what I thought of when I first heard that. I'm like, that's not good. Again, I knew it was technically a werewolf movie, but I was like, okay, they're gonna be like werewolves in a cult that are their own cult. I don't know. That was just what it said to me, because it was like, I know that was a different era. Again, it's like the 80s when people, celebrities would go off. Oh, you're going to go off to this relaxation place and you're going to recharge. And we still have people who do that sort of stuff. But it was just kind of weird that like, he's kind of like the network psychiatrist and he's her psychiatrist. And I'm like, is that even professional? Now he's sending her off to this place called The Colony. I'm like, that is not good. You should not be going.
Yeah. I'd want to, you got a brochure that I can check out first. If it was today, I'd be like, how about I check out the website first? Okay. Yeah. And then, we kind of get there. We make sure it's the daytime. We make sure that everybody knows where we're going. Yeah. I'm going to be over here. If you don't hear from me in a few hours, call the cop. But yeah, I want to find out as much as I possibly can, because, you arrive at this colony and then all of a sudden, hey, let's introduce you to our Wicker Man, and or a statue to the corn god, something like that.
Yeah, it was definitely, like I said, I don't think Karen caught on to that. I mean, she did kind of say, I'm worried they might be weirdos. And then like right away, the one guy's screaming. I think they show up and they're all getting drunk and the guy's like acting like he's going to commit suicide or something of that nature. So yeah, I think her red flags weren't up enough. The red flag warnings for her. So you mentioned connections to Gremlins, right? Did you catch that there was a few actors that are in this as well?
Absolutely. Joe Dante, he works with a lot of, and that happens a lot with directors, I think. They have a certain actor or actress, and they're like, hey, you want to be in this? Dick Miller was in this. He plays the shopkeeper, and apparently it only took a day for him to shoot all his scenes. I saw a behind the scenes documentary of this, and he's been in more than one Joe Dante film, the 2 Gremlins films. Oh, Matinee. He was also in Matinee, which is also great. And Robert Picardo was also in Matinee and in Inner Space.
Yeah, and Gremlins too, I think.
Yes, Gremlins too. Bob Picardo was in Gremlins too as well.
I think we could spend like a good 20 minutes just talking about the connections. I mean, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go into detail, but I think those are some of the big ones. And then I think like the news anchor guy is in both. He's in the Gremlins. I don't remember the news anchor character's name, but he's in the Gremlins, like at the ending, at the news scene, and he's one of Karen's coworkers. And yeah, you nailed the best. My favorite one, the guy who plays Mr. Futterman is, I think Mr. Futterman in the Gremlins as well. So that's cool. I didn't know that he filmed his scenes all in one day. It shows what a great actor.
Yeah, something like that. But then again, he's only in the movie for like 5 minutes, and it's in one location. And there you go.
Yeah, that's true. He just makes his little spill about selling the books, and then there's another scene with I think when the guy comes back to buy the silver bullets, and that's about it.
Check better not found.
Check better not. Yeah, I forgot that was a great line of his. So let's talk about, since you're a big fan of American Werewolf in London, the transformation scenes, because we have a few, right? We have like Eddie, the beach scene. I don't know why I call it the beach, the forest scene. There's different transformations. What did you think about Eddie's transformation specifically?
I think it's actually, in many ways, it's scarier than American Werewolf. David is alone when the full moon rises, and he's absolutely not in control. He's at the mercy of the werewolf curse, and you're put into his shoes in essence. Ironically, he's not wearing shoes, but yeah, there's that. But with Eddie, you are in Karen's shoes, and you are witnessing this. And you see the wickedness on in his eyes, and just how, yep, this is what I am, and I'm going to kill you. and it's terrible. And the best part of again, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it, but the best part of the movie, I think, is when Eddie gets shot and just, yeah, you need to get put down, man, like an animal.
I think I like that about all of it is when, and again, I'm forgetting the character's name. I think, is it Chris? Yeah, Chris is the one that shows up with the silver bullets, right? And he's taking everybody out. And I think just they're all like, whatever. He doesn't have silver bullets, and he's just taking them out. He's just one by one nailing them. So.
But he also knows that I got to be careful because they could rush me.
That's true.
So just got to be careful here. And that one actor, I'm forgetting his name, but he played Chris. He ended up directing a lot of Adam Sandler's movies, like Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
That's just a side note.
I think it's Dennis Dugan. Yeah. I think I wrote his name wrong. In fact, in our initial notes, I think it's like Dennis. Yeah, but I think you're right with the transformation, that it's scary. If you're thinking about it from Karen's point of view, it is much scarier. You're seeing him like kind of almost like grow, like get big in front of her. And when I was initially watching it, I was like, just go, like, why don't you run off? And I'm like, well, she's probably in like shock right now. Sure. Because she thought he was dead.
Terrified.
And then she's like
frozen in fear, I suppose. He also kind of has her trapped in the room.
Mm-hmm. She's kind of cornered.
Maybe it would have been like she just tried to escape, and he like grabs her and throws her against the wall. Maybe she's on the floor. She looks up at him, and
I wouldn't want to be in her situation. I mean, I think too, she's also got working against her that she's already still dealing with the trauma of when he was like stalking her, and then the whole incident of when they caught him. Yeah, like I said, I thought I was like, why don't you just run away? But it's so, like anything, it's easier as the viewer to sit back and think about what you would do. But I think you put it in a good perspective by saying, hey, we're seeing it from her point of view, whereas an American Werewolf in London, he's by himself. I think that this transformation takes a lot longer because of that. You get to try to put yourself into Karen's situation.
He's prolonging her misery, and he's doing it on purpose.
Yeah, that's true. I hadn't even thought about it that way, because he probably could have changed a lot quicker. Now that you mention it, he probably could have transformed.
He's a sadist and a monster, and you cheer when he is shot. It's just...
Yeah, I definitely was happy when, like we said earlier, when each of them were going down. So what did you think about Karen's character? Did you think did she get stronger throughout the movie? How did her character develop?
Well, like I said before, it's the good news, bad news scenario that she at first she just thinks that lost memories, or maybe she's losing her mind, and that sort of deal. But the good news is that you're not losing your mind. But the bad news is that there are monsters, real monsters. The thing that you like about her is that, I don't want to use the word victim, but she's you're seeing the story through her point of view, and your average person really wouldn't know what to do if they're faced with this kind of these kind of monsters. Basically, she does all that she can do to survive, and thankfully she does survive, albeit traumatized.
It was amazing too, because I don't think I realized until my second rewatch that she actually makes that decision very quick as to what she wants to do right after she realizes that it was Bill, her husband, that has caused her to, she's now going to be a werewolf, that she's right away, she's like, we need to tell the world. And it seems like it's that night she goes back, because then the news people are announcing like there was a fire at the colony, and they're making a big deal about what's going on with the fire. And that's when she already puts her plan into action. So I found that, like, kind of in that moment, I felt like she was kind of, again, I guess for the lack of a better word, she didn't want to be a victim. She figured out a way, okay, you know what? I've had this bad thing handed to me, and I'm going to find a way to make better out of it, make it a better situation. Unfortunately, she knew she was totally willing to sacrifice herself if she could get the word out to people about these monsters that were around.
Some people didn't believe it.
Right. I thought that was crazy. I mean, I think, and this was even before like internet and like, there was CGI, but you didn't really see them putting like CGI stuff on like the news. I mean, CGI was so minimal and so like badly, you could see how fake it was, at least now we can.
You could totally believe it if something like that happened today. Somebody's going on TV or someone's going online and say, I'm a werewolf and I'm going to prove it to you. There's going to be people who are going to be like, that's fake. That's so fake.
Yeah.
If they ever did a remake, that would be, you do a montage of people watching, turning this off. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to go for a walk outside. I've been on the internet too long.
I thought more people were going to believe her. And I always wondered if like I was so mad at the guy. I'm like, no, why is he cutting away? I mean, I know why he had to cut away. The producer of the news shows immediately makes him cut away. I'm going to assume because of the gun violence, for being shot. But I was like, oh man, they needed to see her longer. I thought some of the werewolves, thinking again about some of the transformations, the only thing that I kind of was bothered by, and once I did a little bit more research, it made sense, but I kind of was bothered initially by like the lack of consistency among the werewolves. I was like, are they all supposed to look different? Some of them looked like total animatronics. Some looked more like a person in a suit. They didn't look like they all belonged in the same werewolf universe, if that makes sense.
I think they were limited towards budget and special effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I found out later.
There are some deleted scenes where there's some stop motion. There's a very brief few seconds near the end. You see 3 werewolves howling at the moon, and it's a stop motion. It only lasts a few seconds, and it's dark. But there's multiple times where they use more stop motion previously in the film, but those film scenes were deleted, and I'm glad they were. They really didn't fit. It's kind of like I'm reminded of Jaws, to where the shark really isn't working. Well, what do? Well, we got to show it less. So we'll show the shark less. Obviously, we're going to save the shark for the finale, for the last few moments of the movie. But everybody knows what a shark looks like. It's a werewolf, so we can use our imagination as to what these monsters look like. So we're going to not exactly give a full picture right away. And in regards to that, it works.
Yeah, it does. They have scenes where you don't even see a werewolf, but you'll see an arm. So it's inferred to you that, there's a whole werewolf behind it.
At one point, there's just like a silhouette. The one werewolf trying to break in to get the girl to, the killer. And you just kind of see like the silhouette of the wolf. You can tell that, it's a monster. It's trying to break in.
I did like about it though, that they kind of like changed the werewolf rules. It didn't follow some of the typical werewolf rules.
No, they wouldn't be able
the way they could regenerate.
Also, to be able to change at will.
That was the other one. They didn't have to wait till a full moon.
Which kind of makes them scarier now, don't you think? You mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's not like okay, I'm safe from vampires because I'm not going to invite them into my house. No, these things can change at will. They can break into your house. You ain't safe from them.
Yeah, I thought it.
Yeah, that makes them far scarier and more dangerous.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool change of. I like that they did that. I hadn't thought of it, I guess, in sense of a scarier. I just like that it's like it does. Not everything has to follow the same. And I think it made it made the story more creative by having them be able to change at will. I thought that was the biggest one that was unique about them. I mean, of course, they still needed the silver bullets. And then, the bookshop owner again said you could use fire to kill them. So they take advantage of that. There was also some funny Easter eggs that I was kind of catching as I was watching it. I don't know if you caught some of them, like reminded me of American Werewolf in London, how a lot of the songs reference a wolf or reference moons and different, yeah. And here there was a lot of things like they were watching somebody was watching a wolf cartoon. I think there was a scene from Wolfman going on in one of the TV scenes where somebody's watching it.
A scene from the Wolfman.
Yeah. And then what else was there? And then I think Bill was reading Virginia Woolf. I was like trying to pause it and read. I was like, is he reading Virginia Woolf? I was like, is that too? I was like, that's not an exact, but I mean, the names, it's close enough. Okay.
It's a tongue-in-cheek,
I thought that was
wink, wink type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, and the kind of Easter eggs the kind of things you don't have to catch any of them to still enjoy the movie, but I always think it's creative when you catch little things like that. I read, or I heard or read in an article that even the smiley face that Eddie uses, I guess there's a cameo of it in Gremlins. But I didn't get a chance to rewatch Gremlins and make sure, but I guess that smiley face is on their fridge. And I'm like, okay, shout out to Joe Dante finding another way to drop his little things into multiple movies.
I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of
Yeah, I
directors
wouldn't be
do that.
surprised.
John Landis does. See You Next Wednesday. You see that all the time in his films. Or
Yeah, he had it in American Werewolf.
he had American Werewolf. He had it in even Michael Jackson's Thriller. It's written in blood. What's it say? See you next Wednesday, and that's the name of the movie that they're watching. As Michael Jackson comes out of the theater to see his girlfriend.
Yeah. I didn't remember that.
So yeah. A lot of directors
do you know who I think it's such a common thing now, especially like you can spend so much time watching like a Tarantino movie and catching all of his references.
I think Pixar
and like there's whole YouTube channels dedicated to people finding those things. So if I catch any, I'm proud of myself without having to go searching for them. But I don't quote me, listeners, on the smiley face, because I don't like to say like information unless I've completely verified it. So I'm saying now I didn't completely verify that the smiley face is in the Gremlins, but I wouldn't doubt it, because it would totally make sense. The actor who played Bill, he reminded me of Tom Atkins. Do you know who that is? I don't. Oh, Tom Atkins is from he's from The Fog. He's from Halloween 3. So if you ever see who that is, if you ever watch anything with Tom Atkins, you'll totally think it's him. Because when I first started watching, I was like, oh, it's Tom Atkins. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not Tom Atkins. So he's got very much the same look. I think they're both handsome men. So that was something that I think other watchers might catch if there's somebody who watches a lot of horror movies, because Bill Atkins is in a lot. And then I also learned, I don't know if you knew this, I didn't even know that the guy who plays Bill, Christopher Stone, and Dee Wallace were married. I barely learned that like today.
Yeah, apparently they were married or dating. And apparently some other actor was originally going to play Bill. And she suggested, hey, I know somebody. This other actor, I think he's available, fairly certain. So I think he's fairly certain he's available. So he apparently auditioned for it, got the role. Like somebody came over to their house and saw, "Oh, come here."
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay.
You guys are just hanging out.
Okay, so well, that's cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and it was funny because I only figured out because like when I told my mom that we were going to cover this movie, I was like, I'm always like telling her like what's going on. I was like, oh yeah, I gotta watch it. And she's like, oh, I remember that has Dee Wallace Stone. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I never put much into it. She goes, yeah, I don't know if she was still Stone at the time or wasn't Stone, or why she's not a Stone. Is she still Stone? And I was like, I don't know. And I never thought about it till today when I was looking at some stuff and I go, wait a minute, the actor's name is Christopher Stone. And I'm like, huh. Then I went down the little rabbit hole and I'm like, okay, so that's her husband. And unfortunately he passed away.
Yeah.
I don't think they were married very long. I think he passed away young. So that's a bummer.
Yeah, same with the woman who played Marsha. She's also gone.
Yeah, I read that she also died pretty young too. I didn't get all the details, but that's always a bummer to hear. And I know right before you got on, in fact, I'm going off on a little side note, I just saw that Tony Todd died, and I'm very sad about that. I don't know if you know who he is. He plays Candyman.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was fake, and I verified it. Yeah, so for real. I was hoping to catch. I hadn't caught him at a convention yet. I was hoping to run into
Candyman.
So that's one of my top scary movies. So rest in peace to all
so many
people we've lost.
Spots on Star Trek too, and
all right. So another thing related to transformation, and I don't know if you read anything, because since we both kind of heard that they were having budget constraints, why did they make Karen look so different?
I think
her werewolf was like a cute puppy.
We didn't like that.
I think you saw that in my notes.
We didn't like that. Seeing that for the first time, we were like,
I thought the same thing. If you're not watching, if you could see John's face right now, he's making a funny face like, I don't think so.
I think Dee Wallace had a hand in there. I think she didn't want to make her wolf see too scary. But the thing is that if it's cute, the people at home don't want to see it die. Yeah, we want to see cute things live.
That's true. I do get sad when animals die in a movie but yet 10 people just got killed, and I'm fine with it.
I'm there with you. I go John Wick. Just okay.
Exactly.
Who hurt the dog?
Exactly.
Who hurt the dog? That guy has to die. Horribly. Yeah.
As soon as I see a dog or a cat in a movie, I'm like, they're dead. No. I'm like, the whole movie, I'm worried that they're going to die, but I'm laughing. Somebody else passes away. So because she looked like a cute puppy to me, total little cute puppy. She didn't look like an actual werewolf.
Speaking of dogs, I didn't buy into there's the one scene in American Werewolf with the 3 homeless guys, and you have the dog barking. He probably smells the wolf first. And one guy who was watching this film, he went, "Not the dog. Oh, come on, man. Kill the dog. Just, oh, good. Oh, good. He run away. Oh, he's over. Yeah. See, the dog is smart."
Yeah, it's always a relief when you get to the end of the movie and the dogs or cats have survived. I'm like, okay, didn't have to worry. I didn't even have to stress over that. I was stressing over it for no reason. So do you consider this, are there any other besides American Werewolf in London and The Howling that you consider classic werewolf films?
Not many. Unfortunately, it's a genre that really isn't taken too seriously, or nor has it been done very well a whole lot. I think.
Are there any that are personal classics to you, even if like, you know, in the greater scheme of things? I know horror as a genre doesn't, you know, they doesn't get the best accolades, but ones that you think are personal classics?
Well, I personally like the Underworld movies. And if you're going to remake anything, you know, Hollywood likes to remake things. I'm thinking, you know, if they remade Underworld but turn it into a series, and you know, like every season they jump like 100 years or something, and just go through that or something like that. But I think the werewolves in Underworld are really well done as well, showing that werewolves and vampires kind of share a lineage. They're joined at the hip. They're both immortal, tough to kill.
Yeah,
that's why their wars last forever. They're so dang tough to kill.
So, getting to the end of the movie, what did you think about the ending in terms of the way that Karen decides to actually reveal herself? Were you happy with that ending?
I found it to be tragic, and I suppose it was her way of dealing with it. But I think a better ending may have been, apparently she lives in the book, that all the major characters.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Karen winds up with Chris. They wind up together. Bill winds up with Marcia. So Bill lives.
Yeah, and they go chasing after her, right? Or something
like that
in
the sequel of the book, that is. The movie sequels are, again, trash. They're crap. And have nothing to do with the books, really. They just bleed off of the siphon is a better word. Siphon off of the success of the first film, as most sequels do. But I think it would have been better maybe if she took an Incredible Hulk ending and she goes off on her own to get away from society or something like that. You know, she chooses to live off in the woods, away from people, afraid maybe she might kill them or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, like I said, it was a pretty quick decision because she made that decision. Like, it must have been within hours, because she got right when they're in the car, she's already telling Chris, she's like, I gotta tell the world. And then cut to the scene and they're at the new studio. Sorry, I couldn't think about what I was trying to say. They're at the new studio and bam, she's deciding to show herself to the world. And yeah, I kind of was hoping she would have done something different with it. I guess like I thought earlier, she thought it was the best way to inform people, but I think that there would have been other ways she could have done it. And maybe because she was a journalist, maybe she could have written an article or done more, put more of it on film in some way to show it to them.
Or she decides to research it herself and tries to hunt down other werewolves who are evil. Like there are other Eddie Quits out there, and just, you know what? I wonder if one werewolf can kill another. I don't need silver bullets. Let's find out. And you find out that other werewolves are serial killers, or people disappear in the woods, over here, and just that sort of deal.
Yeah, because I'm sure the colony wasn't the only group of werewolves that were around. I'm sure there were other wolf packs out there. Well, John, let's go ahead and let the listeners know all about your books. Tell us where they can find you if they want more information about.
Sure thing. Thanks. I'm an author of the Morgella Chronicles. The Savage Peak is my prequel, and Diary of a Lonely Demon is the beginning of my trilogy. I like to say that this is my Hobbit, and this is my Fellowship of the Ring. If you get the reference, we could be friends. I got two more books after this, and just basically to put it all in a nutshell, it's an alien invasion story where one of the aliens happens to be on our side.
And it's a fantasy, and you said it's a fantasy
It's
book.
fantasy/urban fantasy.
Urban fantasy. Okay. And then where can they, if they want to purchase their books or they want to hear more about your future books that you're releasing, where can they purchase them and where can they
You can go to my website, morgala.net. Links in the description.
Perfect. I'll make sure I put that in there for you, for the listeners, so you can check out the things that he's written. Like I said earlier, I'm definitely looking forward to checking those out. So John, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having you on the podcast. It's always good. John, I'm going to give him a little shout out here. He is my first listener that is now a guest. So all of my past guests have been people that I personally have known. So I think it's really cool that we're on the podcast, we're forging those relationships. And that's part of how I wanted this hobby. I don't want to just chat with people I know. It's always good to get other perspectives and get to know people that are out there that are into the genre, whether they're a big fan, a smaller fan, and also what they're doing. So thank you for being on, John. We really appreciate having you on the Dreadful Dialogue.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So with that, we're going to go ahead and start saying goodbye. Thank you guys for checking out this episode. Again, my name is Elise and we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to find any more information about it, the podcast, you can go to dreadfuldialogue.com. Also on social media at Dreadful Dialogue Podcast. And thank you guys again and have a good one.